I've said numerous times on this channel that I love the Wii U. It's undoubtedly one of my favorite home consoles the Big N has ever released. Sadly, a lot of people did not have the same opinion as me. And the Wii U ended up selling incredibly poorly. But that does not mean we did not get some of the best Nintendo has to offer during the lifespan of the Wii U. In this video, I'm going to be talking about one of the best experiences you can have on the platform, and that game is Splatoon. Splatoon was developed by Nintendo's Entertainment Analysis and Development Division, otherwise known as Nintendo EAD. Splatoon initially started as a competitive ink-based multiplayer game which had a large focus on territory control. Later down the line, the team, which was primarily younger talent at Nintendo, with lead programmer Shintaro Sato, who has worked on the Animal Crossing series, would add squids and the ability to swim in the ink. It's interesting to think if this was truly Nintendo's answer to first-person shooters, or games that really focused on multiplayer, and obviously not local but with a heavy online emphasis, that Nintendo has always been lacking. And I know we have Mario Kart and the Smash Bros series, but I feel like most fans and most people think of those as more of a couch co-op, local co-op, as a multiplayer game, and not really with a heavy online emphasis, especially in a strategic environment, something like a first-person shooter, because obviously those are more like hang out with friends, family, whatever it may be, and just kind of have a good time. I feel like Splatoon was essentially the answer to these first-person shooters, or something that Nintendo could get out into the market space and they could essentially have something similar to those but with a unique twist on it, and I feel like Splatoon was that right out of the gate. Splatoon would release to critical and commercial success. The game didn't have the greatest amount of content and it was a bit of a point of contention for some players, but Nintendo would add a ton of free updates during the lifespan of the game. Splatoon would go on to sell almost 5 million copies on an install base of less than 14 million units. That's a huge success considering it's 1, a new IP from Nintendo, and 2, on a really small install base. So to say the least, people love Splatoon. And Splatoon would go on to be one of Nintendo's main focuses during the Wii U's lifespan. Splatoon would also see 2 console bundles, one with Smash Bros and Splatoon, and I believe Splatoon got its own independent console bundle as well. So this was a system seller for Nintendo. This was a game that really just came out of the gate strong and people really loved it. So after talking a bit about the reception of the game and a small tidbit of its development, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the game. So I know what you're thinking, it's 2022, Splatoon initially released back in 2015. So looking at this game, I really wanted to dive into the campaign because obviously the online is not as vibrant as it once was. So with that being said, I was actually able to play a bit of the online. Now, I want to get this out of the way. You can find matches, maybe not a lot, but you can definitely find them. I noticed throughout my time with the online aspect of the game, there are certain times throughout the week that the community is really there, and there are some times where, I kid you not, I was probably about 5 to 10 minutes before I found a match if it wasn't constantly kicking me out. So let's get right into Turf War. Turf War is essentially the main point of the online multiplayer. In Turf War, you and a team of 3 have one objective: cover the stage in as much ink as possible. Whichever team covers the most ground at the end of 3 minutes wins the match. Like I said, I spent most of my time in Turf War. It's incredibly addictive. With matches only lasting 3 minutes, it really goes hand in hand with a really unique and interesting pick up and play mechanic for an online game. Not something you would find yourself sinking tons and tons of hours into personally, but something you can play for 10 to 15 minutes and feel like you really got your fill. And I feel like that's one thing that really separated Splatoon from the competitors, was that you didn't really find yourself playing for hours and hours on end. At least for me personally, I found that I could play a match or two, switch up some weapons, and still feel like I really got a lot of enjoyment and time out of the game, and I could move on to something else. And that's not to say anything bad about the competitors. For instance, I do have a good time playing Halo Infinite's online multiplayer, and I will find myself playing that for a couple hours on end. But I feel like I can get just as much as I can get out of Halo Infinite for a couple hours that I get with Splatoon in the span of 10 minutes. The more matches you win, the more you level up, and new weapons and clothing options become available. New weapons allow you to cover the stage in many different ways. Some are a bit more on the aggressive side, maybe focus on taking down some enemies with those and let your team cover the field. and some more neutral, allowing you for great coverage on offensive abilities and defensive as well. And I like this a lot. It really encourages you to try multiple different weapons and playstyles. Each of these weapons also has what's known as a special weapon. Now these special weapons are like a super essentially, or something, one big massive move that you can do once you've filled up your ink meter. Now these were interesting because some are really great and some are essentially only useful in a couple different situations. So obviously the main objective is to cover the ground in as much ink as possible. Now you might be using something like the splat roller, which is really going to help you do that. Or you could be using another weapon that is primarily, like I said, more on the offensive side, and you're just trying to mow down enemies to help out your team. The issue is you can have some weapons that you really like and they're good for coverage, but their special weapon is kind of helping you where you're lacking essentially in that offensive capabilities, but you're not really looking for that. The whole point of the reason you're using your current weapon is simply to cover the ground. So sometimes it would be a bit of a bummer when you really found yourself enjoying a weapon, but its special wasn't as useful for you. As I talked about a bit earlier, Splatoon is about 7 years old. So yes, how was the online? I will say it was pretty good. The community is definitely active. There are certain times and windows when you can really get some matches and some where you can't. But I would say for the most part, I would say about 80% of the time I had a pretty decent time finding matches. Now they weren't necessarily always right out of the gate, sometimes they would take a bit, but yeah, I would say there's definitely still a community there. So once you hit level 10, you're able to start ranked battles, and I gotta say, I didn't really play a lot of them. I played a couple, and I believe the matches that I played were primarily just covering a certain spot of the stage and just maintaining that. And it was okay. It was fun. It was a nice change of pace from Turf War, but like I said, didn't really spend a lot of time into it. And it was definitely a bit harder getting into ranked matches than it was getting into Turf War matches for sure. So yeah, they're definitely a good change of pace with a bunch of different modes that you can get into if you find yourself getting tired of Turf War. But all in all, I would say it's definitely welcomed into the game, not something negative. But I just personally didn't spend too much time with it myself. Alright, now to what I was actually really excited for some strange reason. Well, that would be the story mode. Now, even though Splatoon's main draw is its multiplayer, the campaign is actually really fun. It's about 5-ish hours, give or take. Could be more if you decide to find all the collectibles, but it's certainly fun. The level design is really engaging. Some levels have you traversing around on giant sponges you fill up with your ink, and some have you in an all-out brawl against octolings. I really didn't know what to expect with each level. The plot is very straightforward. I don't think you'd expect anything less here. Essentially, everything takes place in Octo Valley, which has multiple interconnecting levels. The Zapfish have been stolen, and it's up to you to collect them all and stop the Octarians. The bosses in this game are something else. I really had a blast with each one, and honestly, I would say the boss fights were probably, if not the biggest highlight of the game for me. These were just so well done, and man, it was really interesting to go to each boss because every boss had a different gimmick, and it was just so fun to figure out what it was and then go from there. And honestly, it was pretty cut and dry, not too much going on in terms of difficulty for them, but just really fun, really good atmosphere. The music that was playing during these encounters were really good. Just all in all, I can't find anything negative to say about these. And the final boss is a gauntlet. It took me 2 attempts to beat the final boss, and each attempt was about 15 minutes. Challenging to say the least, but like I said, you are accompanied by some great tunes during that time. Honestly, all the music in Splatoon is pretty catchy. It definitely helps deliver on the atmosphere and just everything going on in the game. It really helps sets the tone. It's unique, it's catchy, it's charmy, it's kind of funky. I really like it. So, if you've played Turf Wars, if you've played some ranked matches, and you've finished the campaign, you can try the Amiibo Challenges. Now, if you still own Amiibos, or specifically the Splatoon Amiibos, you have the set of levels that these Amiibos essentially give you access to, and it's just a set of levels that you can play. And what they essentially do is throw you into a previous level that you've been with a certain weapon that you have to use to finish the level. Now, these were pretty fun. I didn't finish all of them. I feel like once I got to this point, I really got my fix of the game. And I will say it's pretty interesting, man. If you own the Amiibos, it's actually a pretty decent amount of levels that you get, and there are some rewards and cosmetics that you can get for doing this as well. And for my final thoughts, I have a couple more things to say. Now, firstly, this game came out on the Wii U, so it obviously utilized the gamepad. Now, most people I actually found out were using the gyro controls with the Wii U gamepad, and I will say it works great. As soon as you start the game, in fact, it's set to the gyro controls, and it's not terrible by any means. Personally, I turned them off, and you know, like I said, they weren't bad, I just preferred not to use them. So that is something that you can utilize while you're playing the game if you're a fan of gyro controls. And it was also really nice to have the map, essentially, of the stage in my hand with the gamepad, and I could just touch any of my teammates and I would immediately go straight towards them, which was really nice. Now, one thing that was a bit of a bummer is you can't use the Pro Controller, the Wii U Pro Controller. I believe you can use it with just local matches. I could be wrong on that. And another little touch with the gamepad was the squid jump mini game that you could play while you were waiting for matches. Obviously, with this game releasing all the way back in 2015, I actually spent a decent amount of time playing squid jump waiting for matches. So that'll wrap it up for this video. I really don't have anything negative that I can say about the game. I mean, I really had a great time from start to finish. I know some people have an issue with Callie and Mari, spewing all that nonsense at you as soon as you start the game. I didn't really care much for it, you know. The game was really fun for me from start to finish. The music was catchy, the atmosphere was great, the stages were fun, the weapons were really enjoyable. And to give you guys some context, I didn't get into Splatoon until the second one on the Switch. I was aware of it on Wii U, and I'm pretty sure I owned it at one point, but I just decided not to give it a try. I really don't know why, because I played, once I started 2, I got that on day 1 and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, that'll be it for this video. If you have your Wii U lying around and you've got a copy of Splatoon, give it a shot. It's not too bad. You can still get some fun out of it. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.